Hi, the SI meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Wednesday, May 2nd. Well, yesterday saw temperatures jump into the 80s in the Washington, D.C. region, close to 80 across the Philadelphia region. That warmer air did have more trouble advancing to the north and east, so New York City was not quite as warm. But overnight last night, another backdoor cold front slipped down the east coast from the northeast to the southwest. An ocean flow of air with light east or northeast winds has developed right from Washington, D.C. up and down the east coast from Washington to Boston, and that will knock off many degrees off the highs today compared to yesterday. In fact, Philadelphia and New York City regions will hold primarily in the 50s for much of the day, perhaps topping out in the low to mid 60s across Philadelphia, but still much of the time will actually be in the 50s across Philadelphia and New York City, thanks to that ocean flow of air that has developed. Meanwhile, in D.C., the ocean flow is a little bit weaker, and they may actually have a few breaks of sunshine that'll help boost temperatures perhaps into the 70s across D.C. But even that is much cooler than it was yesterday when temperatures again soared to the middle part of the 80s across the D.C. region. Let's take a look at the latest surface map. And here's that latest dreaded backdoor cold front that slipped down the east coast from the northeast to the southwest overnight. Last night I was watching some of the Boston Red Sox game, and they were shivering. The fans were bundled up. The players were even bundled up. You could see the breath of the players. And that is a warning sign for New York City and perhaps even Philadelphia this time of the year, especially in April and May. If you have colder air coming in off the ocean in Boston, it often will slide down the east coast in the form of a backdoor cold front, and often in the overnight hours. And sure enough, that's what has happened overnight. And again, will be much, much cooler across the coastal plain today compared to yesterday, as this ocean flow of air has reached all the way down now into the Washington, D.C. area. Here's a close-up view of the Mid-Atlantic region. We can see some of the surface observations, and sure enough, these wind barbs are showing this ocean flow of air, either light easterly winds or light northeasterly winds up and down the I-95 corridor all the way from Washington to Boston, and temperatures will be much, much cooler today as a result. The ocean is still, of course, very chilly this time of the year, primarily in the 50s across off the Jersey coast, but that kind of an ocean flow will keep us much cooler compared to yesterday. Now, by later in the week, that same backdoor cold front, which is positioned somewhat in this location right now, will turn back around and head to the north and east as a warm front, and that'll open the floodgates for some much warmer air on Friday, and that warmth will continue on Saturday as well, and then we'll trend downward again with the temperatures into the early part of next week. Here's the latest GOES visible satellite image of the Mid-Atlantic region, socked in with clouds throughout the area from the Pennsylvania-Maryland border on north and east. Again, there can be some breaks in the clouds around the Washington, D.C. area. That'll help to boost temperatures there to higher levels than up north, but we'll be socked in Philadelphia, socked in New York City and Boston with a stiff easterly wind that'll keep temperatures many, many degrees cooler than yesterday. And that cool air will continue into Thursday as well, but then again by Friday that frontal system will lift back to the north as a warm front, and that'll open the floodgates for a surge of very warm air for this time of the year. Here's last night's 0Z GFS run for tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, and still you can kind of see in this temperature pattern right here that there's still kind of a kink in the temperature pattern along the east coast, and this is indicative of an ocean flow of air that's still will have an effect on the temperatures tomorrow. Perhaps Thursday will not be quite as cool as today, but certainly will be much cooler than it was yesterday. And then by Friday, all of this will lift back up to the north and east, and we will surge into the 80s throughout much of the Mid-Atlantic region. Here's, in fact, the GFS map for Friday morning, and by this time, this temperature line is advancing to the north and east as that front is now lifting, and all the warmer air will flood into the Mid-Atlantic region. And again, many parts of the Mid-Atlantic region will reach 80 degrees and perhaps even the mid to upper 80s across the Washington, D.C. area. That, however, will probably be the warmest day of the week, and will start a downward trend in temperature throughout the weekend and into the early part of next week. So the very warm surge of air on Friday and into Saturday is not necessarily an indication of how May will turn out. In fact, there are signs of some colder than normal air masses moving into the Mid-Atlantic region over the next couple of weeks. Cool today and cool tomorrow, but very warm on Friday and Saturday. For the SIweather.com, I'm the SI meteorologist, Paul Dorian.